Hello everybody, welcome back to Faye's house. Now our story today is called The Elves and the Shoemaker. Another one of my very favourite books that I can remember being read to when I was a child. And it's about making shoes. And I don't know, what do you wear on your feet? Have a quick look down. Have you got shoes on? If you haven't, I bet you've got a pair of shoes in a cupboard or by your front door. Well, today, because it was hot, I wore my flip-flops, but at preschool, I often wear my trainers. Now, shoes, whether they are flip-flops or trainers or boots, they all have a part that covers our foot. Even if you can see your toes, you still have straps. And what shoes and trainers and flip-flops and sandals have, they're a bit dirty, aren't they? That's because they've been outside. They all have a bottom bit called a sole. And look, if I turn over my flip-flop, that's the sole of my flip-flop. There. Now, I'm not like Mr. Magnolia. I do actually have two shoes or two flip-flops to go on my feet. But in our story today, we are going to learn about some magical little people who make shoes for the shoemaker to sell in his shop. Let's take a look. The Elves and the Shoemaker. Late one night, a shoemaker sat cutting his leather with a snip, 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 watched by his wife and watched by his cat. There's the wife, there's the cat. These are all the bits and pieces that you need to make shoes with. And there's the shoemaker at his bench with the leather, the material he needs to cut out for the shoe, and his scissors going snip, snip, snap. I'll sew them tomorrow, the shoemaker said. He went to bed hungry. There was no bread, the cupboard was bare, nothing there. Oh dear, how awful to have to go to bed without any food. Their tummies must be empty and they must feel very hungry. There's the shoemaker in bed. In the morning, when he opened his eyes, there on the bench was a big surprise. Someone had stitched the shoes. But who? Wow, they've been done. The shoemaker blinked and scratched his head. What teeny tiny stitches, he said. Who could do a thing like that? Not me, meowed the cat. Perhaps it was the mouse. Or was it you? Can you make shoes? Some of you, I think, had a go at making flip-flops the other day when I put some summer activities in the newsletter. He sold the shoes for a very good price and bought more leather and meat and rice. They had a good supper that night. They got some dinner, they got some food, which is very good because it would have filled their tummies up. Then he cut the leather with a snip, snip, snap. I'm ever so tired, he said to the cat. I can't stop yawning. I'll stitch these in the morning. Now, do you think when the shoemaker goes to bed, someone's going to come along and make those shoes? Is it you? Is it me? Is it little Faye? Is it the cat? Or is it the mouse? In the morning, when he opened his eyes, there on the bench was a bigger surprise. 4 pairs of shoes had been stitched in the night. Whoa! The shoemaker blinked and scratched his head. What teeny tiny stitches, he said. Who could do a thing like that? Not me, meowed the cat. Customers came to the shop in queues when they heard about the beautiful shoes. They tried them on. Soon they were all gone. And now, with all the money he'd made, the shoemaker went to the market and paid for leather in blue and green and red, because you have to buy the materials you need to make the shoes. But because he sold lots of shoes, he's got the money to do that. Wow. And there he is, snipping all the different colour leather. He cut the leather with a snip, snip, snap, watched by his wife and watched by his cat. His wife said, "Now we'll see what happens to that." Next morning, when they got out of bed, they found shoes in blue and green and red. "Such teeny tiny stitches," the shoemaker said. They're getting a lot of help in the night, and nobody knows who is making the shoes. From far away, when they heard the news, people came to the shop in queues. "What beautiful shoes!" they cried. "It's hard to choose." The shoemaker sat and counted his money. He thought, "Isn't it funny? I'm suddenly rich, and I haven't even sewn a stitch," because the shoemaker wasn't making the shoes, and it wasn't his wife, and it wasn't the cat. You sure it wasn't you? Definitely wasn't me. Is it that mouse? Because that mouse is everywhere. Let's find out. The shoemaker's wife said, "We have to find whoever it is who's being so kind. Let's watch in your workshop tonight." So they left a candle burning bright, and there they hid in the dead of night. Midnight chimed, dong. The door went creak. They're hiding behind a curtain. And 3 little elves came skippy skip in with silver tools in teeny tiny tin, but their clothes were threadbare and thin. Their silver hammers went tip tip tap, and they cut and sewed with a snip snip snap, and the shoes were made in a flash. Wow, they are so clever. And not only are they clever, those 3 elves, I think they are very, very kind. What do you do that's kind? Have a think. When the elves had left, the shoemaker's wife said, "I've never seen in all my life 3 little elves so threadbare. I'll sew them all new clothes to wear." Oh, now that's kind. They will have to be teeny tiny clothes. But that is kind. Look, there's the shoemaker's wife making them. She sewed a tiny dress and tiny jackets and tiny tartan trousers with pockets, and the shoemaker made tiny, beautiful boots. The very next night, they left the clothes there on the bench in 3 neat rows. Then they hid themselves to watch for the elves. I can see them, can you? When the elves found the suits and the tiny boots, they put them on and danced through the door, singing, "Shoes we'll make here no more." I think they've done their job. What kind elves? They've never seen another elf. The shoemaker stitches his shoes himself, but every day he's grateful for the dinner on his table. Doesn't have to go hungry anymore, go to bed with an empty tummy. And every night to the window he creeps, for he made a promise that still he keeps. "Thank you, elves," he whispers, and then he sleeps. Night, night. And that's the end of the story. We'll have another one tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.